Hello everybody, this is Milad, and in this video I'm going to create a template with Bootstrap 5, something like this. Here we have like Glassdoor profile page. It's going to be something like this, but it won't be exactly like this because it's really difficult to actually do everything as is here, but we try to make it really similar. And we want to use only Bootstrap and maybe a couple of lines CSS, but nothing more. So that's the point of this video. We just want to show the ability of Bootstrap 5 and to see what we can do with that. So without any further introduction, let's go to the code and see what we can do. I've already done it before to make sure that everything works fine, and I will keep getting back to this to make sure that actually we're on the right place. So let's create a new project. Actually, I'm using Ubuntu Terminal here, but it doesn't matter if you're using Windows or Linux. The only thing you need to do something like this is a browser and an IDE, which could be, a simple notepad. So let me create another folder. Make dir Glassdoor profile and example. cd Glassdoor example. And here I'm going to use VS Code IDE. You can use a simple notepad or whatever you want, but my favorite IDE is VS Code. So here we're going to create all the files we need, which should be the first is we could say index HTML, and the other one is style CSS, which will be used for some customization. Well, since the Bootstrap documentation is really great, during this video, we'll continue using that. And as the first act, we need to grab the basic template we can use for our project from there. So let's go to Bootstrap website. And here, there is no need to download it. As soon as you get the basic template, it includes all the necessary links you need to have to run Bootstrap. So we can say get start, go to get start, and go to you can use this section introduction, and here a starter template. You just need to copy these and paste it in your project. And here the only thing you need to do is actually choose this option or this option. Basically both work the same, but the first one is actually cleaner. Let's get rid of the other lines. This is what we have as the basic template for our Bootstrap project. And you need to start coding here. Okay, let me save. Now to make sure that the basic template works fine, we need to run it. And when you have a browser, it's really simple to run it. Just double click on the file and then open it in the browser. Or you can use tools like Live Server to run your codes from your IDE. If you have VS Code as your IDE, you can search for Live Server and install it. There's no difference between using Live Server or browser alone. and both work fine. So let me open it with live server. And here we have our Bootstrap project. Okay, let's see what we need to do first. Well, here we have a navbar. In Bootstrap, we call it navbar, and also another navbar below it. And it's really easy to implement with Bootstrap navbar. So if you go to Bootstrap documentation and look for navbar, this page this page includes all sorts of nav bars, and you can use any of those you want, and you can just grab the code from the website. So the um, a very basic nav bar uh, should be like something like this. Basically, it has two layers. First, a parent nav tag and also a div tag inside it. So the only thing we need to do is just copy this and paste it in our project. Let's get rid of the title here and move these two head tags. And here in the body we can implement our code. So I paste nav here, and let's see what happened if I save it and refresh the page. Here we have the nav bar. So the first thing you see here, there's a line here at the bottom, and also the color of the nav bar is white, so change it to let's remove the background color and then add a border to the bottom of the nav bar, and let's refresh it, and as you can see we have a really similar nav bar here. The next thing is the Glassdoor logo here. So we can use navbar brand, and this is navbar brand. I can grab this and paste it. It includes the navbar brand. Doesn't need to actually copy that. So let's change it to Glassdoor, and the color we want to have. Well, the number of colors in Bootstrap is really limited, and if you want a specific color, you need to define it yourself. So I say that I want color B, I want text main color, and then I add some CSS here in our style.css file for this class, and I should say color. So the color of the Glassdoor logo, to understand it, to find it, what the color is, the only thing you need to do just print a screen of the page and then paste it in a software like Paint or Photoshop or whatever you have. So I want to use Photopea, I believe .com. It's a free and really great tool, something like Photoshop. And paste it here. Now I can actually access to the color of the Glassdoor logo. Grab the color and put it here with hashtag at the beginning. Let's save it, And the only thing left to do is add the style to our main HTML. So here I just copy this. Actually, we write it again. href and style.css rel style sheet. It should work without any problem, so let's test it. The color should be changed to green. It didn't work. What's the reason? To solve the problem, actually, we need to add another tag here around Glassdoor. Span tag should work. And then apply the class to the inner element. Class and something like this. Let's refresh the page and see what happened. Yeah, it works. And so now we need to make it bolder, and also we need to have a margin here. And to make it bold, to make it bigger, we can use font fs dash font size. So 1 is the biggest font and 6 is the smallest font. To find out how it works, you need to go to Bootstrap documentation, and here we can search for instead of basically we need to have this page. Let's open another one, and here we can search for, where's the search button? Get started here. We can search for font size, for example, and in this page we have everything we want about text. So here the first thing is font size. So as you can see, fs-1 is the biggest font size and fs-6 is the smallest one, and there's no other font size in Bootstrap. And if you want a font size other than this, you need to define it yourself. But the point of Bootstrap is that when you want to do a rapid development and you want to create a template as fast as possible, you use the abilities of Bootstrap. But if you want to customize it, you need to do it by yourself. So let's use fs-3 to see how it looks. And then I want to make it bolder. So here, if I search for bold, you can see that for bold text, you can use fw-bold, fw bold. And also we need to have a margin. To add margin or padding using Bootstrap, you can use M or P for margin or padding. And I want to have margin at the left side. So I can say that margin at start, ms dash, for example, 2 or 5 or whatever you want. So basically the maximum margin we have is 5. Let me search for margin and padding. Well, here in this section, it explains everything we need to know about margin and padding, I believe. But we're going to learn it through the development of the project, so don't worry about this. I'll explain it whenever it's necessary. So, but one thing I need to say that there is a limited number of sizes you can have as margin or padding. Basically, it starts with 0 and it ends with 5. 5 is the maximum margin or padding you can have, and 0 is actually to eliminate the margin or padding. So if you want to have a specific size for margin or bigger than 5, you need to define it by yourself. So let's get back to the project here, and I say that I want to have margin at the start. Let's refresh it, see, it looks nice, but we need to have a bigger margin, so I change it to 5, the maximum margin we could have. Refresh it, and here we have something like this, maybe a bigger font size. So try 4. I tried over and over actually to achieve the final result I want. So because it really takes time, um, actually to make it bigger, you need to decrease the numbers. So 1, we need to test 1. So the point here is that if you want to achieve the template you want, you need to try and try and try, and it really takes time. So I've done it before to look at the code whenever I want to make it quicker. So here, actually, FS2, and it's exactly like what we want. Here I say FS2, and that's it. I think it works fine, it looks good, and that's enough for us. So let's add the other elements we have here. We have something similar in Bootstrap called input groups, and if we look for that, maybe here, group, input group, and here you can see there is all sorts of groups that we want. So one of those would be something like this. Let's look at we have a button and input. So we need to add another input to this. So let's grab the code and paste it here in the container, and let's see what we have. Okay, this is what we have, and we need to add another input to this. Just copy this input, refresh, and now we need to actually limit the area it takes with W 50%, and now we have something like this. So let's look at the code I have to make sure everything's fine. So here I used input group, grab input group large. Let's see the change. Yeah. And what else do we have here? So we copy the text of the placeholder. Get rid of the other attributes. We don't need it. Paste it here. and the other text, for example, location. I say, for example, this is Tampere, and but the problem is that this group of inputs uh, is not aligned like this at the center of the screen, and that's basically because when you use a container by default in Bootstrap, it uses Flexbox, and by default, it pushes elements towards the sides to have the maximum space between them. So if I add another group of elements at, to this row, actually to this container, there it should be something like this. So let me add another group of elements like this. We have two icons here, so I can add them, and to add them I can use actually Google material icons. Let's see how we can use them. Icons and Google Fonts. Material design. And if I go to resources, material icons. So here I can search about every icon I want. So, and there is the only thing I need to do is just grab this. But before that, you need to implement the source to your project from this place. Let me see. Well, here it says that you need to copy this, but it's not enough actually to to use outlined icons. You need to include the right file, which isn't here, I believe. So we should have something like this. If I go back to my code, this is what I've done before. So you need to grab these. Actually, it includes all the styles we want. Material icons outlined, and all the other. Let me copy this and then paste it my project. So now I can use Google font icons. And so let me just instead of copy this piece of code, let me write it from scratch. So basically we want to have a div, and inside div we want to have two icons. As I said, you can copy these. So you can search for the icons you want. For example, inbox, for example, here. We can search for inbox. Let's see what we have. Well, the most similar thing we have is something like this. It's fine. There's no need to be exactly like that. So copy that and then paste it in our project. And the other icon is profile, I believe. So here we have this, copy this, paste it here. Let's see what happened. If I refresh, so here this is our icons. It's not in the right place, so it's not in the right place. So let's make it better. We need to put it in nav. Made a mistake, so we put it here. Basically, we have three immediate children for this nav bar. Oops, just grab it, paste it here. Yeah, here we have three immediate children, 1, 2, and 3. So Flexbox align them in a way that they have the maximum space between them. Okay, make it cleaner. Let's refresh the page. Okay, looks good. We need to make these icons bigger. So actually, these are um, we can use actually font size attribute to make it bigger. So font size 2, for instance. Same thing here, 2. Let's refresh, and we can actually look at the original template here. So font size 1, text muted. So to change the color to be gray, you can actually use text muted class in Bootstrap. And with this, we'll have something like this. But we need them to be actually links. We need to click on them. So I wrap them with a tag. So a tag. And wrap it again. Like this. And okay, look at this. It looks good. It's clickable. Now let's add a space between these two icons here. So we can do that with actually with margin. I can say class mx-3. It means that I want margin in x directions, means horizontally. So add it also here. I want to have margin horizontally. 3 is good. Let's refresh. Now we have a nice space between them. Uh, and now let's actually add the class, make it to add a deflex class to that. You can see there was actually space here. We got rid of that with deflex. Actually, deflex means it should use flexbox to arrange the items. To align the items, it should use flexbox. So if you want to use flexbox in Bootstrap, you need to use deflex class. Maybe it's a good idea to actually uh, add a space between this icon and the right side. Okay, I could say margin at the end 2 would be good. Yeah, that's fine. It looks nice. Now let's get back to the search form, and here one thing left to do is actually, first of all, we need to have a search form. So basically here we wrap this div, this input group div with form tag. You can say something like this. Let's see. And the only thing we should do is to limit it to this area. And we can do that with Bootstrap with W50, for example. If I refresh, it looks like this. So to solve that problem, we need to change the width of input text as well. So here we add the class of W50, and I also want to have a 25 for that. Let's see what happened. And here what we have. Okay, but let's get rid of this. Okay, it works. It should work like this. Okay, it's good. Let me get rid of this MB as well. It looks nice. Yeah, it's okay. Now, based on what we have here, we need to have a background like this. It's BG Light in Bootstrap, and we want to have smaller font size. And also we need an icon here. So let's add these changes to the project. So here for the first text input, we want to have BG Light, and also we need to also have a padding, the space between the text and the border of the input text. So we add padding X3 and padding 1 in vertical direction 2, and also we need to change the font size to make it smaller. Let's look at the result. Yeah, it looks good. Let's change this for the second text as well. Make it BG Light PX3 PY2. Let's look at that. And also, but the font size, I think We need a bigger font size. 5 is okay, I believe. Yeah, it looks nice. And now let's add the icon. So there is a couple of ways to do that. We can use Google Fonts to actually add the icon. We can use a PNG, or the easiest way is actually to grab this icon from the website. So if I go to developer dashboard with holding Control Shift I, here I grab, if I change the size to this, if I select this element, we can grab this VG element, right click and copy element and paste it in our code. And we need to wrap it with a div tag. So let's wrap it. It looks like this. We need to change the background, and also we need to change the location, and we need to add the borders. So what I'm gonna do is to add BG light as the background, also add some padding to that, change the font color to text muted, add border at top, and make the border size to 1. Also add border at bottom. Let's look at the element. Yeah, it looks like this, but we need to get rid of the right border. But actually the border is for this text width, so we need to get rid of the left border of this text field. So we can do something like this in Bootstrap. We can say border start 0. So we'll have something like this. It's okay. Now the next thing is the button. Here we have change the background to the background we want. So because we don't have that color in Bootstrap, we need to make it in a style.css. So for example, BG main color, and copy this, paste it here, and say that background color should be like this. Okay, let's refresh it. Okay, now we want to have the text to be light, I believe. Actually, the button includes an icon, a search icon. So let's we can grab actually this icon, or we can use Google Fonts. So the easiest solution is to just grab this. We'll use Google Fonts later, but for the search icon, it's better to actually use this one because I couldn't find really similar one to this. So copy element, and here can put it instead of the text. Okay, let's refresh it. We'll have something like this. And we add text light to this SVG as the class. So let's get rid of some of these classes. We don't need them. We need deflex, and we need text light. And also here, let's get rid of these classes. It's better to have the flex and some of these attributes are not useful. Let's refresh it to see what happened. Okay, it looks good to me. There's only one problem is this icon. I believe we can fix it with wrap it with a div. So here, if I add another span with class of dflex, actually when you add the dflex class, it aligns the element at the center by default, so it should work. Let's see. It didn't change. Strange. Let's add some padding, maybe fix it with padding. Yeah, so let's add padding top, padding. Actually, we need to add the padding to this padding top one. Yeah, it's good. So let's leave it there. That's fine. Let's see what's the next step. Let's go to the next nav bar we need to add below the first one. So basically there is two sections, so we need two different divs. And here what we want to do actually to create these two sections is that we want to use Bootstrap grid system actually. And this is the point where you need to understand the difference between Flexbox and Bootstrap grid system, because basically they're not similar, they're not same. Actually, some people think that you need to use only one of them, but that's not true. You need to use them in a combination. So here we will look into it and we'll understand how to use both of them. So actually, I want to use Bootstrap grid system to divide the screen into two different sections, and then I can align the items inside each section with Flexbox. First of all, we need to add navbar. Let me close this one. We want another nav tag and add the class of navbar, navbar light. We want it to be light, and also we want it to have border at the bottom. And now in the navbar, we want to have two different divs. First one. But before that, to use the subgrid system, you need to actually define a row. And so we want to have row, and let's close it. And here in this row, we want to have basically two columns. And we want to actually, with these columns, we separate the screen into two sections. And that's a point. So let me first, and to have a column, you can say one class call. And let me copy this. And here, if I add two text, part 1 and part 2, let's see what happened here in the UI. If I refresh, so here I have part 1 and part 2. So let me add some background color to these columns. So for example, BG warning for this one. and BG primary for this one and see the difference. So we have basically two columns, but it doesn't really work well. So let's go to the documentation of row, for example, row grid system. In grid system, so if you want to use row, you need to use a container actually before that. So, but you can use the container inside the row. It doesn't matter. So I add container flow to this row, and if I refresh it now, you can see I have two columns. Basically they take the space equally, but I want to limit this column to 5 and also 5. As you know, we have 12 columns in Bootstrap grid system, so there should be uh, 2 columns left unallocated. So, but because container fluid by default uses Flexbox and it pushes all the elements towards the side. So if I refresh it, you can see that there is a space, uh, there's empty space here between these two columns. This is exactly what we want to have. Let me get rid of this background. Oh, let's keep it as it is, and then we can remove it at the end. Now, inside the first column, I want to have another row, which includes 4 categories I want, and basically each of these categories can be a column. So here, instead of this, I can say div, and with the class of row, and like this, I can also add class call, and here, oops, you can say category or item 1, and we can actually copy and paste this 4 times. Let's look at the view. And we have 4 items here, and we need to have icons as well. And let's add some margin to this. Actually, to margin to the row, margin at the start. It's better like this. We have a space here, so it's fine. Now the point here is that for all of these elements, we will actually all of them are drop downs. To have drop down in Bootstrap, it's really easy to have drop down in Bootstrap, and it takes care of everything JavaScript, CSS, everything you need. The only thing you need to do is actually add, first of all, class of drop down, and then here inside that you need to define all the items you want. And the first one I want have, and here we put the icon of the item here. So let me actually grab this from Google Icons, and we want to look for something. Let's search work. Okay, a bag or something like that. It's good, I think. We can copy this and paste it here. Let's save it. And then we also add another span with jobs text. Let's modify the text to make it to have font size 6 and make it bold. Okay, so let's look at the results. I refresh, we have something like this. First of all, for the A tag, let's add some classes here. So the first thing, I wanted to use flexbox to actually align the elements correctly. As you can see, it aligns all the elements inside it. And then I want to use text muted to change the color, and also want to get rid of the line, so I use text decoration none. If I, yeah, it looks like this. It's good, I believe. And we can actually say that we want to align we could say align items center. Let's see how it looks. It doesn't make a difference. Let's get rid of this for now. But what I want to do here is actually I want to add some classes to this. The first would be when I change the font size to, for example, 4, add margin at the end, because actually I want to have a space between the icon and the text. Margin at the end. Use flex and justify. Let's just test it to see how it looks, and then we can add the flex box. So it looks like this. If I add some flex box here, justify content start. So it doesn't make a difference actually here. Using flexbox doesn't mean anything, so we won't use it. I think it looks fine. Now we need to add the rest of the drop down. So we define the first div, including drop down class, and now inside this class, after the after the logo, after the A tag, we need to add UL tag to include all the items we want to have in the drop down, and we should use drop down menu class here, and with li we can add elements as much as we want. And here I want to have A tag with the class of actually drop down item. All of these are in Bootstrap documentation, so the only thing you need to do is just search about, for example, drop down menu, and then grab the code from the website. And that's it. Add some href here. It's good. And I want to say recent. What was it? Recent activity, job orders saved, and applications. So recent activity, and let's copy and paste these. job alert saved, job alerts saved, and the other one is applications. Applications. Okay, it's fine. Let's refresh it and to see if it works or not. So basically the drop-down menu in Bootstrap, if we look at that in the documentation, drop-downs, it works actually by click. It doesn't work by actually by mouse over. So to make it to work with hover or mouse over, you need to do some configuration in the style CSS. You need to say drop down, hover, and drop down menu. Here you can say display block and margin top 0. So if I refresh it again, you can see it works fine. So we can do the same for the rest of the items. To actually to save some time, I just copy this from the code I already have, and from here, so here call, we have 4 columns here. I copy the rest of them and paste it here, basically in here, actually under the column. Let's get rid of these 3, paste it here. Let's look at the output and we'll have something like this. And actually you can add drop-down menus to these as well, like as I did, but just to save some time I don't do it. Okay, that's fine, I think. Let's go to the second part, but before that let's get rid of the background color to make it more beautiful. Here, BG warning, get rid of that, refresh, and we have something like this. Let's add some margin to this row to actually in vertical direction to have more space. It looks better. There is one thing you need to pay attention to, that is actually here I didn't use drop-down menus. Actually, instead of that I used a simple element like this here. Actually, I have an A tag here, and inside that I have 2 span tags. Basically, it's similar to the inner elements of drop-down menu, actually something like this. So, but if you want to have drop-down menu, you need to copy this and try it over and over to have different drop-down menus. But for the second part, actually, for the part here, we We don't need to have a drop-down menu, so I just grab one of these, I copy one of these from here to here and add it to the second part. Let me to actually wrap it with a div as well. And I want to assign a column to that. Let's see the result. Let me copy this again to have another item. So it looks like this. Okay, as you can see, these two items are aligned vertically. To align them horizontally, we need to add a deflex class to that and then say that justify content end. So by this, we'll have something like this, but there's a problem here. I'm not sure. Yeah, the problem is with div. Save and refresh again. Okay, let's change the icons. For the first item, we don't have any icon, so get rid of this icon. And for the second one, we want something like the icon we already have, I think. So what was the first one? Work outline. Paste it here. What's the text? Post jobs. Let's say post jobs. Look at the result. Okay. Let's get rid of the background color to make sure it looks good. And I believe it's okay. Okay, that's enough. Let's change the text here. Also, this is another drop-down menu, but just to save some time, we don't do it, but you can do it as I did for jobs menu. Let me change the text here for employers. For employers. Okay, it looks good enough. Let's pass this. The next thing we need to work on is this banner here and the profile picture at the middle. Okay, we're done with navbar. Let's close it and open another div. And here, the first thing we need to do is a class of container to actually contain the elements we want to have inside it. Well, I use container Floyd. And also another container and another div inside it with, well, because basically the color of the banner is gradient, we need to style it ourselves. So let's add a class called banner and define it in a styled CSS. And here you can say banner. The first thing we need to do is to assign height to the banner to have, for example, 100 pixel height. And also we want to make the background color to be linear gradient. with the colors we want to write, but to actually find out what these two colors are, you need to actually use the same way we did for actually to understand the color of the logo. You use a software like Photoshop to grab the color, and here I can say I want this, put it here, and then I want this, copy this, paste it here. If I will refresh the view, let's look at it. Okay, there is nothing. What happened? So we have the class of banner, style banner, background color. Actually, when you want to have a gradient, you need to say background image. Let's refresh. It looks nice. So it needs to have some margin. So let's add the margin here. Margin. Let's add margin first to top. It's fine. It's better to add this margin to the container. It looks the same, but let's add the margin. We want to have MX margin. 5 is good. We wanted to make it rounded. 2. And because we want this to include the profile image, let's leave it for later. Just see the result as it is. Okay, it's good. Let's add the profile at the center. So I'm gonna add the profile actually image inside this, but you know, to design something like this, it's a little bit tricky. You need to use multiple divs to achieve something like that. So the very first thing we need, actually want to have a div for profile. So I say that profile, want to have a class profile and run it circle, and I want to have BG light. For the profile, what we want to do is that we want to add the image as the background. So we need an icon, something like this. So let's search about this, for example, profile image. PNG, something maybe like this is good. So I copy this image and paste it here. The easiest way is actually to change the color using Photoshop. It's easier this way to do it. You can do it actually with CSS, but we just wanted to make it in the easiest way. Grab the color. Color is this. And okay, let's crop it. It's good. Save it. Profile PNG, put it in our project here, and we want to use this as the background image actually, and should say profile.png. Let's look at this. So we need to do something else to say background repeat, no repeat, and also say that background size should cover. Refresh, and we need to add some width and height to that. So 70 pixels. You need to try it over and over to figure out what the best actually size is. But I already know that. Let's refresh it so we'll have something like this. It's good. What if we try to make it bigger? It looks good, I think. Uh, Actually, the icon is not similar because it doesn't cover the bottom of the profile image, and that's a problem. Maybe actually it's better to change the profile. Oh, we can do something else. We can limit it again. Can limit it. It should work. Yeah, I believe it should work. PNG and say profile 2. Put it in our code. And profile 2. Let's refresh page. Yeah, it looks good. It's not similar, but it's not that much bad, I think. So we need to put it. We need to place it at the middle of the banner. So we need to add. We need to add deflex class to justify content at the center. Let's look at this. Okay, it looks nice. Now we need to have another circle around the initial profile image. Uh, Basically, yeah. Okay, BG light. Let me wrap it with another div. Class BG light. Rounded circle. And we want to have padding 2. Let's refresh this. So we need to actually change the size to, let's do it. We'll fix it later, but let's add another div to actually create the white space around it. Class bg white rounded circle with padding 1. Something like this. And now to fix the position of these elements, wrap it with another div with a class of actually dflex, and we want to justify content and center, and also we want to align items center. Let's add some padding as well. To achieve the right style, to achieve right values, you need to try it over and over and try different combinations. And as you do this, you get better in doing this. So don't worry. Let's refresh it. And I add this padding to top. Now look at this. It looks nice, but we need to have also padding to be like this. Well, it's something like that. The icon is different, but it looks good, I believe. Now the next thing is actually adding this text, these two texts here. So first of all, we need to define a container with dflex class, because we want to actually align these two inner elements vertically. So let's add it here. Want to have something like this with the class of, first of all, it's good to have padding top. Padding top 5 is okay, and add dflex class to it. When you want to actually align the elements in the flex box, you need to say align it. When you want to have two items vertically aligned, so you need to say flex column. If you want to align them horizontally, you need to say flex row. By default, it's row actually. Flex column, and then align items center, and also make it container. Actually, when you use container, it contains it in a smaller div than container fluid. Container. Let's add some background to see what happens. So let's look at the result. If I refresh, there's nothing to see because we need to put some text here. If I do it, refresh, well, now if I add container to this, you can see that it continues to a limited area container, and it should look like this. Okay, let's get rid of the background, and here in this parent div we need to add another div for our first text. I want to add class, so the text here is finish your profile. Add it here. Finish your profile, and I want font be bold. Also make this font size 3 and put the text at the center. If if I don't add this, let's see what happens. If I refresh, everything looks good. But if you add text center, let's add some BG warning. If I refresh this, if I say text center, well, it doesn't make a difference here, but if you have multiple lines, if the text is bigger than one line, it's useful to use text center to centralize it. Okay, let's get rid of this PG warning and also add another div with the text of. So here we can leverage text center to make it look better. Okay, now here I want to have actual text. We don't want this to be bold. We need to change the color to be gray. So assign text muted, and we want to limit it to certain width. W75% is okay. And let's see the result. Okay, as you can see, it's aligned from actually from left to right. So if you want to align it at the center, you can say that text center, and it aligns at the center. Okay, that's it for our text. And the final thing to do is actually this area. And here we want to use Bootstrap grid system to actually to have two columns here. So first of all, we need to define a container, and inside a container we need to define a row, and in the row we need to define two different columns. So let's start with the container. So I want to say div with class container, and here say class row, and it's good to have top margin, top padding or margin 2, and let's have margin 3. And inside it we define two columns. So first column, and it's okay. Part 1, we need the same thing. Part 2. If we look at the result, so basically we have two columns, but what we want to have here is actually we want this text be at the end of the column, so we can use flexbox actually to align it wherever we want. But with Bootstrap grid system, we divide the screen into two parts. So that's the difference between Bootstrap grid system and flexbox. So let's use flexbox, say dflex, and I want to justify content at the end. Let's look at the result, and it looks like this. Now inside the first section we want to have different rows, but here we can also use flexbox actually align them vertically, so there is no need to actually use grid system. So inside this I can say div use class dflex, and I want to have flex column, align them, align items, start. And inside this, we add all the items we want. Class, and inside this div, we want to have an icon and a text. So let's add both. To add the icon, we can use Google Material Icons. We can use the same thing as what we have here. Copy and paste it. And then add another span to add some text. So the text here says apply to job faster. Let's add it here, and we need to add some style to both of these spans. Let's add some padding to the icon, and also I want to make it green, so I say text sexes, and also change the font size to 2. And for this item here, I want to have bold font and font size 5. Let's look at the result. Oops, here. So, but as you can see, these are not aligned. So to align it, we can use flexbox again here. So in this class, I can say flex, and here I can say align items center, like this. And also it's a good idea to add some padding vertically, like this, to have more space. Let's grab this and copy this and paste it 2 more times. If I refresh, now let's change the text. Personal result, and also increase visibility to employers, and change the icons. What we want to have here is adjust, and for this one, description, I believe, should work. Let's refresh. Okay, it looks nice. It's not bad that much. It's good enough for this tutorial, I believe. The main difference is actually the color of these icons and the shape of these icons, but the positions are fine. Okay, now let's add this line here. To add this, we need to say we want to have border at the end. So here I say border the end and size 2. Refresh. Now we have a border here. Also, let's add some padding here to make it look better, similar to this. So I would add the padding to, actually I want to add some margin to this div. Margin at the end, 3 would be good, I believe. Let's try and refresh. It looks good. We could try 4 as well. It's fine, I think. Okay, let's do the final part, which is this part, this section, which includes a button and also a text. Uh, Here, part 2. First of all, we wanted to have a button. So we use button tag class btn, and we say want to have btn primary and add some margin to that. We want to say finish my profile. It's okay. Let's try it and see what happened. Okay, looks good. Let's add the icon and add the text. So I'm gonna create another div here, and inside it I want to have an icon with groups icon. There is no need to have padding. Font size 1 is good. Let's add some margin at the end and another text here. Let's copy the text. Okay, let's see the result. It looks like this. So here, to align the elements, I can say that I want it to be deflex and align items at the center. If I refresh it, and now for the outer div, also say flex, and I want it to be flex column, and align item center, also justify content. So here, want to have these two elements have the maximum space vertically. So we can say that when we add flex column, it means that we want them in two different rows. And when we say justify content between, it means that the space between these two elements in the y direction is maximum. So let's try it and refresh it, and we'll have something like this, which is good, I believe. We could actually add some class to this to delimit this W50, I think, something like that, 75, like this. It looks good, I think. Yeah. Okay, that was it. It looks really similar. It's not exactly like Glassdoor profile page, but you can make it better if you find the right icons and assign the right colors and add some margin and padding to the elements to make it look better. But I believe that's it for now. The whole point of this tutorial was to learn how to use and how to leverage Bootstrap 5 to create our templates. So I hope you enjoyed this. Please hit the like button and subscribe to follow my channel and to see my new videos. Thank you. Bye.